It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Buongiorno tutti e felice anno nuovo. Hello everybody, good morning, and happy new year. Get a little practice of my Italian. You are listening to the cleverly titled The Phil Ferguson Show. We have a lot of things here in this new year in 2020, and we're going to talk about a brand new law. Congress actually got something done, and something specific that affects your investments and 401ks and IRAs. Some of it's nice and some of it's naughty. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to have an interview with Noah Lugeons, who runs the Scathing Atheist and at least co-hosts that, I guess, and several other podcasts that you probably know and love. We're going to talk about those shows a little bit and then just some random stuff. It's just a couple of people talking. So hopefully you enjoy the discussion / interview with Noah Lugeons. We're going to have that later in the show. A couple of housekeeping things for the podcast as we enter here into a new year. I've got a lot of things going on. One is I'm trying to start using what's called a CRM for my business, Client Resource Manager, Reference Manager. I'm not sure exactly what it stands for. Been having some fun, some hassles, I guess, with that. So I'm still working on that. The goal is to eventually make me more efficient, but I've spent way too much of my time over the Christmas and New Year holiday trying to get that set up for the new year. So I will keep enjoying that adventure and learning new things, and hopefully it makes me slightly more efficient so I have room for some new clients. But for now, from now until maybe the middle of February, I'm still on a holding pattern. No new clients at this time, but I do expect to open that back up. I find that I must be able to have the appropriate amount of time to pay to clients that I already have. They're paying me money. I have to be available to them, and I don't want to work every hour of the day. And it's a bizarre place that I never thought I'd be in, where I have too many customers, too many clients. But thank you. Thank you, everyone that hires me, everyone that ever has hired me. I was just looking at the data. One of the ways to look at data in CRM is, how many new clients you have and how many clients you've lost. And I do lose clients, but the number is very, very small. So I think that's a sign that I'm doing something at least good enough for the average person to not get over their inherently sedentary nature and change their accounts to somewhere else. So yay us. I'm so glad that everyone's happy enough, and hopefully beyond that, but I'm a realist. Other things coming up, we're going to talk about market returns in the next episode for sure, because the stock market for 2019 was on fire. And part of it is because the fourth quarter of 2018, it went down 18%. So if you bounce back from that, you just to be even, you can make 18%. But we have some returns, and it depends on what things that you look at. But, U.S. stock markets, 20s, 28, 30, 32, 35. Some segments are pushing close to 40% return in 12 months. What do we do about that? I will be announcing some changes to my model. It won't take a rocket scientist for you to figure out maybe what I'm going to adjust. And that's something I've actually been working on for several months for actual clients, because while I do give everything for free on the show, paying clients get the information and the implementation of their accounts before you get to hear about it for free. So they have to get something extra for paying for me. So we'll have that coming up. And probably the second show from now, I will be going over not only the data and how 2019 went, but updating my annual little plan to show you how model portfolios can work. It's something I started, I think, 4 years ago. I did a 10-year review, and then I just added a year when we got more data and did 11 years, 12 years, 13 years. So I think this year will be the 14th year of this. And of course, it's just a way to look at some of the data that actually happened. And so we'll have some fun with that and see how that works out. The other thought that I had is that I came up with a new term to describe one of my investment ideas. And I wanted to throw this out to you to see if you like the idea or if you can come up with a better word, because it's a new thing to me. It just happened to me. I'm sitting in my car, and we've talked about, catchphrases like saving 10% as a suck-ass minimum. We also have investment clarity, which means that you can see exactly what you own. You can see how much you have in stocks and how much you have in bonds by having all these index funds that are very tightly controlled, and not just having a growth/income fund that might have 80% stock and 20% bonds, and then a few months later, the opposite. So it's hard for you to have that clarity to see what you own. And recently I was talking about the difference in returns in, I think it was just actually the last episode right before Christmas, dollar cost ravaging, and how if you pick the absolute worst time to start taking out money, and if you're only 100% in the U.S. stock market, how you can still over time, even with drawing out only 4%, and with inflation adjustments for the amount that you're taking out, you might be at risk. Your portfolio might be at risk if you're taking out 4%. But again, it was with only one investment. And I showed in that episode how that can be mitigated, dramatically changed, almost completely eliminated as a risk if you have two investments. So instead of just the S&P 500, you have the S&P 500 and the total bond market index. Now, I don't do just two things. I might do 10, 12, 15 different things. It depends on what's going on, because sometimes my models change. And again, that's one of the topics we'll be talking about in the next few weeks. But it came to me that having all those different funds not only provide clarity that you can see what you have, but it provides granularity. And so you can pick and choose, and it's not just like your whole portfolio went up 10 or down 10. You have sufficient granularity so that you can see through the clarity all the different positions that you own, and you can pick and choose. And that makes a dramatic, absolutely dramatic difference in how much you make over time, because on an ongoing basis, not even annually, but every few months, for someone who's in retirement, when you're growing the portfolio, it doesn't matter as much. But when you're close to retirement or in retirement and you need to take some money out, your 4% or 5%, I think, is workable for most people because of this process. That if you have a year where the real estate funds make 20+%, even though regular stocks are only up 5%, you take money out of there. If you have a year where the stock market's down 25 or 30%, but bonds are up 5%, you take out of the bonds. You don't sell the stocks. So because of that granularity, you're able to pick and choose on a regular basis where you take money from. And just like you want to sell low, or buy low and sell high. I can't even get that right. You want to buy low and sell high. The granularity allows you to custom choose, like with the little surgeon going there with a scalpel and saying you're going to sell 5,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 from this one specific position. And if you are able to pull money off of the biggest winners when you need to add cash to your portfolio, you are going to have dramatically better results. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about in 2 weeks. But the word for that now, I guess, is investment granularity. I don't know. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Send me an email. I mean, if you like it, send me an email. If you don't like it, send me an email. But if you don't like it, you got to give me another fucking word. So don't just go, it's bullshit. Fine. Great. That didn't help me any. Be productive. Tell me it's wonderful and it makes sense and it makes the concept understandable, or that it's not the best word and here is the best word. Give me another word. I went through a couple thesauruses. I didn't like what I came up with. So if you've got something better, let me know. So like I said, in the coming weeks, we've got a lot coming up. We'll take our quick little break here, and then you're going to learn about changes that may affect your investments from the brand new law called the Secure Act. And after that, we'll have our discussion with Noah Lugeons. And then, of course, we'll wrap up the show. And, of course, welcome to the year 2020.
We do not accept that there is a God or gods, personal or in nature, manifesting himself, herself, itself, or themselves in any way. We do not accept the idea of heaven, hell, perdition, purgatory, or any other of the stages reached by escalator going either up or down. We do not accept that there is any life after death. We do not accept miracles. We do not accept the idea of angels, spooks, goblins, gremlins, leprechauns, elves, or souls. We simply do not accept that anyone at any time was ever a prophet of God who did not exist or which did not exist. We do not accept any so-called holy books as guides to life, and that includes the Bible, the Torah, the Veda, the Koran, the Upanishads, the Awaspi, they invent them constantly. We don't care whether that book was written by anyone in history, in any age in history, whether that was written by Moses, Mary Baker Eddy, Paul, Joseph Smith, Mohammed, Gautama Buddha, or the fickle finger of fate.
This Investing Skeptically segment is on the Secure Act, S-E-C-U-R-E Act, the Secure Act of 2019. Its full name is crazy, but it's called Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement Act. Stupid. Well, anyway, this was proposed, and I think I've talked about it once before on the show several months ago. Well, over the holiday season, Congress passed a law and Trump signed it. I think it was on December 20th when the news media wasn't paying too much attention to anything other than red and green Christmas trees and all the sales that are going on. But this thing has something like 20 or 30 different things that it changes about retirement, investing, IRAs, 401ks. Some of them may affect you. Some of them will never affect you. But we're going to go over some of the things that I like and some of the things that I don't like. One of the nice things, I guess, for people is that RMDs, required minimum distributions, are going to change from the age of 70 and 1/2 to the age of 72. Of course, 70 and 1/2 was a stupid thing. Why make it a half? And again, why increase it by a year and a half? But if you don't want to take your money out and you want it to stay in your 401k, IRA, whatever, for a longer period of time without being required to take the money out, you now have on average an extra year and a half. If you've already started taking money out because you turned 70 and 1/2 in 2019, this does not apply to you. The rules don't change for you. You have to keep taking money out. It's not even that bad of a thing. I mean, you don't have to spend the money. You just have to take it out of the IRA, and you could put it in a taxable account. So it's not a big thing. It allows you an extra year and a half. Fine. Some other things involve 401k plans. There's a little bit more of, I guess, subsidies from the government to help small companies set up 401k plans that they can write off the expenses of setting up a 401k plan, depending on all the details. And of course, this becomes very specific tax stuff. So if you run a small company and have a 401k, you might want to talk to your tax expert. And of course, they're probably gearing up to do 2019 taxes in the next few months. And most of this stuff takes effect in 2020. But it's good to try to get ahead of the game to check out how it might affect you. Some of the things are delayed to 2021. One of the other changes is that after you reach the age of 70 and a half, you can still contribute to your IRA. Previously, once you got to 70 and a half and you were required to take money out, you weren't allowed to add money in. Kind of makes sense. But now you can add money past 70 and a half. I haven't seen if that stops at 72, because at some point it becomes weird if you're adding money at the time you're required to take out money. So if you're working, could you be required to take out money and then turn around and put that same money back in? Although it wouldn't be the same money, because technically you would take that money and then you would take some of your new earnings and add that in. But we all know how the reality is. So that would be kind of odd. And of course, at that point in your life, it might not even be beneficial to keep adding money to an IRA, because you don't get the value of the compounding over time for that effect to take place, and you might end up paying higher taxes on their growth via your income tax rates instead of capital gains tax rates. Another little effect that might help some small companies is small companies that are completely unrelated may join together and create a group plan where 5 or 10 companies can work together and have a 401k. Theoretically, this is a great benefit for really small companies that can't get somebody like Vanguard or Fidelity or Schwab because they're too little. And you have to get somebody that has really high expenses, maybe for the employees instead of the employer, but you might be able to get better plans. I'm not sure exactly how this will play out. There is the possibility that someone could set up a company just to create a 401k plan and then allow anybody and everybody in it. And once it becomes big enough, it becomes kind of like a national 401k plan. And as long as you work for one of the companies that are a member of this plan, you could just join that. And if that takes all the heartburn and headache away from the company from managing it, you might just start a new job. They say, this is the 401k, go talk to them, and they're out. That's good maybe, and bad maybe. I don't think that employers should actually be involved in your retirement plans like 401ks and 403bs, but I also don't think they should be involved with your medical plans either. But this is where we are, and that's one of the other changes. One of the most important changes for me to ponder, and I'm not quite sure how this will play out yet, but it has to do with inherited IRAs, also called a beneficiary IRA. If you already have a beneficiary IRA or an inherited IRA, and that usually will come from your spouse, parent, grandparent, aunt, and uncle, wherever it came from, my understanding at this time is that if you already have one, you are grandfathered in under the old rules. So that's okay. One of the important parts about the old rules, for example, if you get a beneficiary IRA at the age of, let's say, 30, because unfortunately your parents passed away and they left you $500,000. If they left you $500,000 and you're 30, you would have a required minimum distribution, even though you're not 70 and a half or 72, but it would be based on your life expectancy. So if you're 30 and your life expectancy is, let's say, 80, to make this math simple, it's about 50 years. So 1 divided by 50, about 2% of that money you would have to take out. So 2% of $500,000 is about $10,000. Now, the nice thing about that is that means 98% of the money gets to stay in there and keep growing year after year after year, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. compounding, all tax deferred. So as far as estate planning and beneficiaries, this is a very, very big deal. That is going to change. The new rule is that you must take out the money in 10 years. All of it. 100% within 10 years. Now, the other weird thing is that even though just a few weeks ago, I had on an expert talking about the law, he's an actual attorney in the state of Texas and may not apply to everybody, but some of the stuff we talked about is now fucked. So just keep in mind, that's how this shit changes. If you currently have an IRA and you want it to go to your kids, or you want it to go to a trust for your kids, you may need to pause somewhere in the new year here and make sure that it does what you intended it to do based on the new laws. And it may take your attorney or accountant some time to get up to speed, because I'm just reading reports. I haven't actually read the law, and I don't know that it'd be actually clearer to me if I read the law. So some of these opinion pieces I'm reading may change as we learn more about the details and how it's actually implemented. But a very interesting case, again, we go to this person that inherited $30,000 or $500,000 at the age of 30. In the past, they'd be required to take out a very small amount, 2.5%, 3%, based on their age and their life expectancy tables as calculated by the IRS. Now, the nice thing, I guess, is they're not required to take out anything for 9 years, I guess. So you could take out nothing. But then on your 10th year, you are obligated to take out the entire amount. And if you're lucky and you didn't need any of that money, your $500,000 turned into $1 million. However, the year that you take that out, and again, unless this rule has changed as well, and I'm not aware that it has, that $1 million of income at the age of 40 would be added to what you earned that year, and you would pay the marginal rates, 24, 28, 30, 32, 35%. And if tax rates on income go up in the future, which is my guess that they will, because we can't pay our bills right now, but if they go up, you could pay 39.6, 40, 45, 50% perhaps if you have a large portfolio. So instead of spooning this money out and deferring taxes so you get compound growth for decades, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you have only 10. And it's got to come out. And that changes the thought process, because now do you take out 10% a year to try to even out your taxes? Do you take out more than 10% a year? Because if you take out 10% a year and the account grows, or at least it grows partially, you could still end up taking out more each successive year, because you have to take out your 10% of the original amount, but the amount that's left behind grew. Do you take out more than that? Do you just take your lumps? Do you take a year off of work so you can take the $500,000 out at the lowest tax rate? Do you take it out over 2 years? Do you wait for something, a life event to happen where you and or your spouse lose a job? It can make a big difference. It makes a big deal now. So other things that change for 401ks, which can be nice, is they changed some of the rules about automatic enrollment. I think that the automatic enrollment rate historically has been 3%. Companies may now be able to go to 6%. And I think there was something where they could increase your contribution rate every year unless you opted out, and go from 3% to 10% over time. And now they can go from as much as 6% to start up to 15% without consulting you or asking you, which honestly, for most people, is a really good thing. So that's nice. Another problem that we have, in my opinion, is that within your 401k or 403b and a few other similar types of plans, you will now be able to buy annuities. I think this is horrific. It can be presented as an additional option. It can be presented as giving the consumer more choice. You have more things you can buy. If you don't like annuities, don't get one. But the reality, it never seems to work out that way. And you can have some problems where you will have trained professional salespeople that spend their lives trying to sell annuities, now going into companies, large and small, and talking to people in HR departments and convincing them of all the beautiful things about annuities. And HR people, like everybody else inside of a company, they have a hard job to do. There's a lot of rules to know. There's a lot of things to know. And if someone can come in and make your life easier, you're going to be tempted, especially if it's such a wonderful thing like an annuity. So I'm very concerned about that. I'm very concerned that people that already have money in tax-sheltered accounts will now be paying extra fees and commissions to buy annuities that won't benefit them in any way, and will probably just spin a whole lot of money out of the accounts and make it worse for the average person that may not really know what they're doing with a 401k. Because the nice thing about your company putting you automatically in the Vanguard or Fidelity or Schwab 2030, 2035, 2055 model portfolio or target date portfolio, it may not be the best thing that you could have picked, but if you don't know anything, it's a pretty fucking good choice. Now, if you don't know anything and the default is an annuity that claims to return up to 3% per year, do some companies choose that for you? And do annuity salespeople make a ton of money setting companies up to make this one of the options? Be very careful going forward when your plan changes and your company suddenly moves to an insurance company, and or they offer you annuities or set your default contributions to annuities. This is something you are going to need to pay attention of. There's many other little things. There's one that you can take money out to pay for college debt. That's nice, but if you're taking money out of your retirement portfolio to pay for college debt, that's not, I don't know that it helps you. I mean, it's another option. They also have this thing where if you work part-time, as little as 500 hours a year for an employer for 3 years, or 1,000 hours in a year. I think the old rule might have been like 2,000 hours or 1,500 hours. But now if you work for somebody part-time for 3 years, 500 hours a year, you may be able to be allowed to, or they might actually have to allow you to join the 401k plan at that company, which is nice because now even people who work part-time can have a 401k from their employer. The problem, I think, is going to be is that if you only work 500 hours a year, and that's about 10 hours a week. If you work 500 hours a year, you probably don't have the funds sufficient that you could set aside and actually put any of it in the 401k. So it's nice to offer benefits to people that have no money and can't utilize them. It would be better if they made some kind of rule that maybe a higher minimum wage so people could actually earn money and then save some of it. I think that'd be a better law to have, but I'm not in charge of anything. So that's some thoughts. As more rules and information become clear to me, I will try to share that with you here. I have emails out to a couple of people who've done stories and reporting on this to see if they can shed any additional light. So in the following weeks or months, I might have something that adds to this, or at least repeats this, because there's a lot of important changes. But that's a lot to go over. So that is the brand new law signed December 20th of 2019. That most of this takes effect January 1st of 2020. So welcome to the new year.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Your investments should be based on your situation, and you should consult with your financial advisor before taking any action. The show may contain ads. These ads are placed into the show by the hosting company after I finish recording and editing. I have little control over the content of the ads, and you should not assume that I support their products or claims. if you choose to support the show via the new Patreon page, that support does not create an advisor-client relationship. All right, everybody. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest today, Noah Lugeons. How are you today, sir?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you what, man. I just quit smoking about a week ago, so I'm on edge. But other than that, doing good. I breathe deeper and stuff.
I've never started smoking because I was afraid that I'd get addicted to it.
You would have. Yeah, that's what it does.
Yeah,
that's all it does, interestingly enough. It's not like all the other addictions that have the decency to at least get you drunk or high or something. It just is an addiction. That's it.
Well, it's a really funny thing. Last year I got diagnosed with pre-diabetes and high cholesterol, and I'm supposed to lose weight and behave and all this bullshit. And since then, I really can't even enjoy alcohol. It just kind of rattles around in my head that I'm poisoning myself, which I know is true, but, what's a little poison between friends?
Unfortunately, yeah, eventually it's, kidney failure or something. But.
Yeah, we did have one relative, I won't get too specific, that apparently wasn't able to distinguish between gin and water, and just ended up drinking gin 24/7. And I learned, what is it? Scoliosis, whatever. The liver turns...
Cirrhosis.
Yeah, that's it. The liver turns into a pumice stone and doesn't do anything, and that's not cool, man. That has side effects.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody turned into your show to hear the kidney hour here, but my
old folks medical problems.
Yeah, right. But no, my father-in-law had renal failure and is going through dialysis right now. And just hang out at that dialysis ward for a little while. That will that'll remind you just how poisonous it is. That if you're ever feeling like you really need a drink and shouldn't have one, that might be a cool spot to drop in on.
Well, good thing smoking doesn't have any medical side effects. That's
yeah.
Remind yourself of that. My dad had stage 4 lung cancer after 20, 30 years of smoking.
I was at 31, so yeah.
Yeah, it's wacky shit. But no, really, let's talk about you. And I know a lot of people know you and love your show, The Atheist Experience. So I figured you'd appreciate that. You have more than one show. Why don't you rattle those off? Because I didn't do any fucking research.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, so our first show was The Scathing Atheist. It's still going strong at 350 episodes plus and counting. We also have a spin-off of that called God Awful Movies, where we review terrible Christian movies. Where we review Christian movies. I don't want to be redundant.
Yeah, redundant. Christian fiction.
We also have a movie called We also have a podcast called The Skepticrat, which sort of just grew out of the fact that we talked a lot about atheism and we butted up against politics because obviously atheism and politics coincide quite often. But sometimes we really wanted to veer off in politics a lot further than our focus on atheism would allow. So Skepticrat exists so that we'll have somewhere to bitch about the president when he's not specifically screwing the rights of atheists. Then we recently, recently it's been like 3 years now, 2.5 years or something like that. But that's recent in my life at this point. Started a show called Citation Needed with a couple of friends of ours from the Cognitive Dissonance podcast, which is basically just a trivia show because we really like to podcast, and sometimes it really doesn't have to be about what an asshole Donald Trump is,
Yeah, fair enough. It's hard to avoid, and it's one of the things that my audience leans very liberal. Not everybody, but very liberal and very generally anti-Trump, and I think that's just because they're decent human beings. But I had to break in people to the idea that people losing their rights and privileges doesn't necessarily mean the stock market goes down.
Right, right.
So there, as far as investing goes, it is all about money, and so you have to separate those two ideas in your head. And speaking of money, and I don't mean to be rude, but you are one of the handful of people that apparently are making money being an atheist. How'd that happen?
Man, I don't know. Right? Like I just woke up one day and it had happened, and I've been asking myself that question ever since. But Yeah, when I was lucky enough to wander into the podcasting landscape when I looked around and I thought, man, this is going to be hard to compete. There are nearly a dozen atheist shows out there.
Yeah, at least a dozen.
Yeah, and now of course there's several hundred of them all kind of competing for that same dollar. So timing was a big part of the reason that we were able to be successful. But I think honestly, from the day we started our podcast, I treated it like a job. I treated it like a profession that I wanted to have. I put in, when we first started the show, it was one show. It was bi-weekly. It was 30 minutes long because that's how much I knew I could put out high quality and still work my 50-hour-a-week job, right? But as people started saying like, hey, I'll throw you a few bucks, I started saying to myself, like, look, if this could be my full-time thing, I could do this level of quality an hour a week. And I let my audience know that, and they responded with money. So, I think it was almost exactly a year after we started the show, I lost the job I intended to retire from.
Yeah.
At that point, the income from the podcast was enough to pay the bills mostly.
Right.
So I started another show. I wrote a book. I did a couple of other things to try to, help monetize the podcast, brought in advertising. And really kind of squeezed every dollar I could out of that until we reached the point where, it could pay my bills, it could pay my partner's bills. And then from then, once you see that you have something that's working, the instinct, at least my instinct, is to just milk that cow until it's dry, right? It's something that I love doing, and the more I do it, the more money I make. So here's another show, here's another show, here's another show, and if I could just lobby Congress to give me 45 extra minutes on every day, I'd have another one out,
Yeah, it's one of those things that for my show, I figured maybe I'd get a client or two out of it. And I don't have anywhere near the listener base that you and a couple other big shows have. And maybe I'm tier 2, if not tier 3. It just turns out that a handful of my listeners have money and want to give it to me. So it's a weird place for both of us, I guess, because 10 years ago, this wasn't possible. I don't think.
Yeah, well, I think both of us have sort of, and I don't think this was an intentional decision when we were deciding like how to orient our shows, but generally speaking, demographically, atheists tend towards the wealthier, right? So,
that's true.
It just so happens that we are gearing our shows towards a crowd, skeptics, et cetera. They tend to be college graduates more often. They tend to be more educated more often, and they tend to be middle to upper income more often. So, yeah, I think probably just demographically speaking, we do skew towards the wealthier, podcast listeners.
The other thing that's funny, I've talked to other advisors, and they won't fucking touch atheism. They won't market to it. They won't recognize it because they're terrified they might lose existing customers. But because I was a nobody to start with, and I
had nothing to lose.
Yeah, and I didn't have the common sense to think that, oh my God, it's only 15% of the marketplace, because a lot of advisors are based in a city or a community, and they don't care about 15% of the market if they can appeal to 85%. I just didn't pay attention to any of that shit. I just did what I wanted, and I think maybe for people listening, that's one of the keys is do what you want to do, because worst case, if your show sucks and no one listens, you at least had a little fun.
Well, and my big thing was, somewhere in the universe, your voice is going to echo after you die, right? Even if it's ever so slightly, and even if no one ever hears the echo, it's there. Yeah,
because some people will download and record it and can hear you. And it's funny, one of my most cherished possessions is this little teeny bullshit, like $40 voice recorder that I gave to my dad a week before he died. And he only used it twice. But that's the only audio recording I have of him for the rest of my life, is those two little clips.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I get it. That's a big deal. Of course, from the shows, you go to conferences. You got anything coming up that you're going to?
I don't know. I mean, there's one conference that I'm absolutely going to attend, even if it's just as a attendee, because it's my favorite conference. That would be the QED conference in Manchester, England in 2020.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they've announced that they're doing it, but they didn't do it last year, and every indication is that they're going to do it this year. So I've been looking forward to that one for a couple of years. They really do put on the best conference in the business. That's the only conference that I've got settled into my calendar going into 2020. You know, we do a lot of live shows just kind of on our own. So basically we set that calendar and then see what conferences fit in with it.
Yeah, I know the only one I've got confirmed for the next few months is American Atheist Conference.
Now, where are they doing that this year?
I'll see. As soon as I said, I think Phoenix?
Phoenix? Yeah, okay, yeah. So I will almost certainly make that one as well because...
It's Phoenix.
Yeah, right, it's Phoenix, exactly. Cause last time it was Oklahoma City, they invited me. I'm like, well, fuck, you know?
Yeah, been there.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, great. Yeah, this last year we went on a cruise with some Florida atheists and then went back for another conference that they had. It's an extra inducement for me to go to Vegas or Phoenix or San Diego or something because I live in Chicago. Are you around Chicago? I can't remember.
No, I'm in the deep South. I was living in Pennsylvania for 2 years ago, year and a half ago. My father-in-law got sick. He lives down here in just the absolute taint of the country here in South Georgia. But he needed somebody here to help take care of him. My wife, she works with the company. The company can. I can up and move and take my job anywhere I want to. So we came down here to help him out, and I've been in Georgia now for almost 2 years.
Georgia, damn! I've driven through it about as fast as I could.
Oh yeah,
and that's not very fast if you go anywhere close to Atlanta because their traffic blows hard.
Yeah, but you know what? Atlanta is it's like a real place. You know, it's like this weird. It's like a hiatus. It's an oasis in the middle of all that other Tennessee and Kentucky and North Carolina crap. Atlanta, Athens, that whole area is fine. You lop the top third of Georgia off, and you have the worst state. Right? We're right down there with like Alabama and Mississippi in terms of like lowest college graduation, high school graduation rates, highest infant mortality, lowest income, lowest everything that you want, highest everything you don't.
Well, you get the families that one of the kids is very, very proud because they're the first ones to completely graduate junior high.
Yeah. So,
woo! I've set a new bar for my family. You mentioned you wrote a book. What was the book?
Well, so I've actually done 2 books. At the beginning of each episode of The Scathing Atheist, I do a monologue. I call it a diatribe because if I didn't, other people would. And I've compiled some of those into book form. It's basically it's the same content being retooled and sold back to people who could get it for free, but it's ever so slightly different. You have to rewrite things a little bit when you're writing it for a book versus when you're just going to be yelling it out loud. And I added a couple of like introductions and essays and stuff. So I've got 2 books: Diatribes Volume 1 and Diatribes Volume 2. I'm thinking about doing another one. I haven't come up with a good title yet. So,
well, that sounds like that might be more interesting than the famous quote book I have from George Bush. That's some hilarious shit.
Remember when he seemed inarticulate for a president?
Oh my God. He couldn't structure a sentence together, but he knew more words.
Yeah, right.
And Trump. It was funny. I was just talking to someone the other day in a general sense about Trump, and they said, I think you want to impeach Trump because you hate them. And I said, this is a classic problem where people think they relate correlation to causation. I do hate him. I do hate him. I'll own that. I'll say that out loud. Very, very few humans have I ever met in my life that I genuinely hate. And I've not met Trump, but I genuinely hate him. But I don't want him out of office because I hate him. I want him out of office for the same reasons that I hate him, is that he's a sociopath and a liar and a criminal and a thief. And the thing is that he is very much like a former boss that I once had, which would be inappropriate for me to name, but just would steal ideas, would take all the credit, would tell everybody. And about half the people that heard this guy talk would guffaw out loud at the blatant lies and bullshit that he would string. But the other half of the people followed him around almost like a deity. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, and I never thought I'd see it again until I started watching just randomly a couple episodes where he was the boss and he'd fire people. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why do people like this guy? He's like Jabba the Hutt writ large.
But dumber, yeah. Well, that's the thing. He's like X, but dumber is always the formula for Trump. And I got to say, I also worked for a very Trumpian boss. He's the one that fired me right after I started the podcast officially, not for having an atheist podcast, for some other thing.
Yeah,
I'm sure he would go to court to defend. But I also worked for a very Trumpian guy, smarter than Trump, but like the same type of just get the fuck out of the way so the rest of us can run this company before you run it into the ground kind of guy who would wake up every day with a whole new vision of where he wanted to take the company. As you would be getting the work done on one thing, he'd have a completely different idea, scrap all of that, throw a wrench right in the middle of what you were doing and start a new project that would never get finished. Yeah, and I have to say, this is I'm almost sad to say this, but I have met Trump.
Oh,
I met him. So I worked for a toy company for many years, and my job was I went around the country to schools and stuff and taught people how to play with a toy. It was a skill-based thing, right, like a juggling type thing.
Okay.
And one of the places that we demonstrated regularly was FAO Schwartz, which was the big toy store. It used to be on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
They just reopened in Rockefeller Center. Check it out. It's a great store. So I'm at that place, and every year they had a charity gig that they did at Easter where they would bring in the gazillionaires of the city, right? So they would lock the store down in the early evening, and they'd bring in, 5-star chefs, or if that's a thing. I don't even know how many stars chefs get. But they'd bring in these fancy chefs, and they'd bring in all these – there'd be people walking around with trays of champagne and stuff like that. And all of these uber-rich people would come in with their kids, and then they'd donate a bunch of money to charity. And the kids would, run around and have fun at the toy store. And so I had to do these things. And it was amazing because it was like being in a – like a nature documentary, seeing the rich in their natural environment and everything. This literally happened there. I'm standing I'm about to leave because I get to leave before the whole thing wraps up. I'm about to leave, and there's these 3 girls that are standing at the door, like 15-year-old girls standing at the door and just like blocking it. And I finally have to ask them, I'm like, hey, are you guys going to go through that door, or can I push past you? And they said, well, we're going to leave if the doorman ever shows up. There's no doorman. You just push the fucking they were just standing there unsure of what to do when there wasn't a doorman there to open the damn door for them. Wow. Anyway, so of course Donald Trump was at one of these. And I'm playing with my toy, teaching kids how to play. And of course, I had at that time he was just an annoying celebrity, right? He wasn't like the scourge of democracy or anything.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to put him on my list of celebrities I've played this game with. It was a pretty impressive list. You work at FAO Schwartz often enough. You're on Fifth Avenue, and that's where Angelina Jolie buys her baby stuff. So I'm trying to get him to play, and he knows that he's a goddamn klutz, and that if he tries to do this, he's going to look like an idiot, right? So he's desperately trying not to do it, and I'm desperately trying to get him to do it, and it's this like really awkward moment because he wants to be mean to me, but he can't because there's people watching, and I'm kind of fucking with him, I'm kind of like, oh, come on, man, if you screw it up, like, what it's going to be like one of your casinos, man. Nobody will remember it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that was like a vodka. 4-minute nightmare where now looking back on it, I feel like, God, I could have pissed on him. The Russians would have been there with a video camera. It would have been amazing.
Well, it's funny. As I was going to sleep last night, I came to this realization, and my realization is that Trump, I do actually think Trump should be more like Jesus. He should hide in a cave for a day and a half, disappear, and leave behind only a soiled garment.
Okay.
How's that analogy?
I like it.
All right.
I like it. Hey, man, look, anybody who's dead that you want him to be more like, I'm all for it.
Well, the important part is the disappearing. Just to go away. I'm waiting for the news to come out one day that Trump got on a plane to go visit his buddy Putin, and he just doesn't come back because he realizes the jig is up. I've moved enough money around the world. See y'all. I'm just going to go.
Honestly, that would be, in so many ways, I mean, I hate to say this, but in so many ways, that would be the perfect ending for this story, is that he gets like, a month and a half from the next campaign and then flees to Russia so that his supporters can still come to me and say that he was a good president afterwards.
Well,
I want to see how they spin that one.
I'm actually not surprised that that he doesn't do something like that, where he just up and randomly resigns one day and says, everything I wanted to accomplish has been accomplished. I need to run my businesses, and America can thank me for the rest of my life, but I'm done. And so I don't even need to be president anymore. I think the problem is that he is smart enough to realize he's going to go to jail if he's not president. So that creates a problem, because he'll do now anything to stay, which is common of a dictator wannabe.
Yeah, that was, I believe that's how Julius Caesar got his start.
Yeah. If you leave office and go to jail, that's motivation to stay in office.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just like carte blanche, grant him an island and say, you get to go there, and we'll send your fans with you, whoever wants to go. Just
all right, this is getting better every minute. Okay,
yeah. Well, right. It will take up a collection. One of the ideas I thought I had was that start a fund where people could sign up. Like, you used to do this thing where every mile you run, you collect $1 from somebody when you were in school or something. Well, my thought was to create a charity that for every tweet you commit to, maybe just a penny, because on some days that's still $3 or $4. You commit to a penny every time Trump tweets, and if thousands and thousands and thousands of people do it, every time Trump puts out a tweet, hundreds to thousands of dollars would go to help a poor child in Mexico.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah. Or you could also do the same thing, but with his lies.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Every time there's a lie, or maybe legal immigrants within the United States, we help them out. And
there you go. There you go. As long as the money is going to people with dark skin, it'll piss him off.
Right. And one of the other things that someone had put on Twitter that I saw is that if Trump announced via a tweet that he was resigning, that would be the most shared tweet ever in the history of the world. It would be the cherry on the top of his glory and fame, because that would never be outdone, and he could leave on top.
Yeah, Trump, if you're listening, you would have the highest rated tweet in the history and future of Twitter.
Yeah, we'll make sure of it. We'll spread it like
yeah, if it's just me and Phil sharing it back and forth.
Say, everybody share it. Yeah, I'll hire one of those bot farms that ping your podcast or your song on to get your rankings up. But it's amazing. So what else is going on in your life down there in Georgia?
I gotta say, man, when you're giving up a 30-year cigarette habit, that pretty much does all of it. That takes up all your time. I'm not sure when this episode is going to air, but I'm getting to that point where even I have to do my Christmas shopping. So we're 5-6 days out now. So I got to start working on that.
Well, I've historically, I've set expectations so low that no one really expects anything from me.
Mm-hmm.
And just a couple weeks ago, my wife and I were sitting watching a show, and I'm like, do you want something for Christmas? And she's like, no, I'm good. Do you want anything for Christmas? No, I'm good too. Okay.
All right, so here's my problem. I have a habit of occasionally getting the most awesome, like having an incredibly good gift idea. So I like the expectation is always there for me, but the way it works is that I have nothing 2 days before the birthday or the holiday or whatever, or the anniversary, the gift occurs to me, and then I nightmarishly have to make it happen in 48 hours or whatever. And then, so I have the worst of both worlds. I'm a terrible gift buyer, but then that sets high expectations. So.
I would recommend FAO Schwartz for that.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All I'd have to do is fly to Manhattan.
Yeah, I think they should pay for a sponsorship spot on my podcast now. That's FAO Schwartz. Everybody, if you're listening, have your agents contact my agents, which is me. We'll set something up. All right, so we're either late 2019 or early 2020, depending on when I get my shit together and put this in a show. What else are your plans for 2020? Any new podcasts, or are you kind of maxed out now?
Well, okay, so I hesitate to say anything because as soon
You
as
heard it
you
here
say
first,
something, then
folks.
it becomes a thing.
Yeah.
Right, and everybody bugs you about it. But there's a show that I wanted to do, and I've been kind of kicking it around in my head for a really long time, and it's completely unrelated to anything that I've done up to this point. So if I did, it would just be a real tangential, episode when I can get around to it kind of thing. But I've wanted to do a serialized history of video games podcast.
Oh.
I've been seriously considering that. Like I said, nothing to do with anything I'm doing. It's just an interest that I have. My lifetime basically lines up exactly with the history of video games. I was born in 76, so Pong was there, but basically everything that's ever happened in video game history happened in my lifetime and more or less directly affected me. So that's a huge interest that I've taken over the last couple of years that may eventually turn into a podcast. Now that I've said something out loud about it in the world,
now, what you could do is in 6 months cover every 2 or 3 years of history, and that way, by the time you catch up to current day, you'll be an old man and you'll never lack for content.
Yeah, well, that's honestly, so I've gotten far enough along in the planning stage of this that I sat out and I wrote out, okay, so if I was doing, once a month episodes, or if I was doing once every 2 weeks, how would I want to structure it? And what I realized is there's no way I can get 1 year of history out every year of podcast and do what I want to do. Right.
Yeah.
So it would be a perpetual project. I would always be, 40 years behind or so.
Huh, maybe you could do a dual track where you start 5 years ago on one episode, and then you go back to the origin on the next episode, so that within a year or two, you can get kind of contemporaneous while you're still building this ancient history. Because that might appeal to regular video gamers to know the history and what's going on.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing, is that honestly, my interest is really, really geared towards the early history of video games. So when it comes to modern games, I'd really have a lot of reading, a lot of catching up to do, because I don't have a whole hell of a lot of time for video games in my life anymore.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
But when it comes time to talk about Donkey Kong and Q*bert, man, that's my role. I could talk to you all day about Donkey Kong.
Oh, Q*bert, man! Some of my fondest memories. My first year of college, they had a Q*bert machine in the vending area, and it just so happened that if you grab the coin return slot and jerk the machine up really briskly, it would spontaneously provide you credits.
Yep.
And so people would sit there day and night, 24 hours a day. There'd be people playing that game. Had so much fun, just hanging out, waiting your turn, or seeing how someone else was doing. What a stupid little fun game.
That was absolutely my game back in the 80s arcades. And it was you couldn't find it very much. I think that the cabinet itself, that game, was just a crappy design, because it seems like every time you saw it, it was out of order and they couldn't get the part. And even now, right? Even now, if you go to retro arcades and stuff, if they've got a Q*bert machine, more often than not, it's going to be broken. But man, I love that game.
Yeah, that was a fun one. What was it? Of course, Pac-Man and Defender. And there was one that was cutting edge at the time where you could actually have alternate paths to the story because it played off of a laser disc or something.
Oh, are you talking about Dragon's Lair?
Could
it
be.
was like a cartoon.
It was like a cartoon, and I seem to think that you were on a boat in the water, and
okay.
At least maybe that was part of it at the beginning or something. But it had alternate paths where you could change the story at least a few different ways, so you wouldn't always play the same game twice.
Yeah, no, there was a game that was super famous called Dragon's Lair that was made as a cartoon, and it used the Laserdisc thing, and the game itself really sucked, right? It was not a fun game to play, but it was so infamous because it was a cartoon, and it was high quality. It was like Disney quality cartoon. It was the same people who did All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Okay.
It was at that same production team that did this video game, and the game was so limited. You were limited to, okay, if you hit left at this point in the cartoon, something happens, right? Like very, very little interaction. But the game was so famous that they would bring it around to arcades. They'd plop it in for like 2 weeks. It was $1 to play back when everything else was $0.25. You would pump all your money into that. Afterwards, you would be like, man, that game sucked, but at least now I can tell my friends I played fucking Dragon's Lair, you know?
Now, if you had only one video game, any format, any era that you had to choose that you could hang out with 4 or 5, 10 friends and play together for entertainment and fun, what would it be?
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's specifically a game like we're talking about like couch co-op, like these people are in my home or we're all hanging out in one place.
You're all sitting around eating a little bit, and it could be a 2-person or a 3 or 4-person game, and you're playing, and loser gets kicked out, and someone else takes the seat, and you just have fun playing for hours and hours and hours. What do you go with?
Okay, so it's absolutely going to be a variation of Mario Kart.
Oh, okay.
My personal favorite would be the Mario Kart. I think it was the second Mario Kart, the one for the Nintendo 64. I thought it was that was the one that I got like stupid good at and knew all of the shortcuts on. But any version of Mario Kart.
It's funny because my answer, I asked because this popped in my head, was Mario Kart Double Dash.
Oh, okay, all right.
And I don't know if that's the same one you're thinking of, but that also is a game because I had a year where I had to go to work in Arkansas without my family. And I could commute back every week or two, but I bought whatever system it was on and sat there and played, and I knew all the lines, all the tricks, all the strategies. And I would play my son and his friends when they were like 10 and 12 and thought, oh, we're going to play video games with the old man. Because at the time, maybe I was like 40. And they'd sit down and I would just kick their ass one game after another. Even surviving, half a dozen blue shells and still winning the race. And they're like, how? And I go, I've played this more than you.
Yep.
Because I had one game. To play and a lot of free time. So.
Isn't it weird how like playing video games with your grandpa is going to be a legit thing? Like he's going to be good at video games in just, a few more years, right? Like basically every grandpa in another 15, 20 years grew up playing video games.
Yeah, it's funny. My son got to be really, really good in, I think he still is really good in Smash Bros. Mm-hmm. And he would play in tournaments where these guys would walk in carrying their own 19-inch tube TVs because the video game is old enough that it's designed for analog, and there's a 1/30th of a second lag if you put it on a LCD screen. And, of course, in my head and sometimes out loud, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Do you think you can react to 1/30th?
You've got a 1/30th second response time.
But they come, they park their cars and they bring in all these TVs. And my son challenged me to a game after he was already quite good. And I was doing the classic button mashing because I'm holding this controller and there's like 42 buttons on it. Mm-hmm. And I'm just randomly hitting buttons and he's jumping around and he ends up accidentally falling off the game platform. And so I got a KO, right? So I'm ahead. And it was a timed game. So for the next 2 minutes, I ran like a little schoolgirl. And he would hit me and hit me and hit me and hit me. And I ended up having, 240% damage or whatever it was, but not quite to the level of a kill. And he finally knocked me off the platform. I even fell off below the frame of the monitor, but not far enough for it to count as a kill, and time ran out. And so technically I beat him and I just did the Rocky thing, and threw the controller down and I walked away and he's like, you got to play again. You got to play again. And I said, no. And I rode that horse for 10 years as being again, undefeated. And he finally agreed to play me, or I agreed to play him. And he gave me 10-1 that he'd have to kill me 10 times before I could beat him once. And I thought, oh, surely I can kill him once before he gets me 10 times. I was wrong. I was so wrong. So, yeah, that's my Smash Bros. Story.
So, actually, strangely enough, I have a related Smash Bros. Story, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, talk to me.
So that's Heath's game, right? So Heath is a huge Smash Brothers fan. And when
does he have a 19-inch TV tube that he carries in?
Not that huge, but pretty huge.
Well, now you know what to get him for Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. I'm literally getting him cash. I'm assuming that either this isn't going to come out beforehand or that anybody listening will have the sense not to tell Heath, but I'm getting him cash.
Yeah, he'll be shocked that you give him cash, by the way.
There's a whole story behind it. But at any rate, so he's a big Smash Brothers player. When we first, so Heath and I, before we did a podcast together, we were roommates. We both worked for the same toy company. The company had a house in Queens, and we both lived in it. So when we met Eli, who is the other host on our show, Heath had said something about how much he loved Smash Brothers. There was a new Smash Brothers coming out. I think there was like the one that came out on the Wii or something like that. He says, there's a new Smash Brothers coming out. I can't wait to get that. I'm awesome at Smash Brothers, blah, blah, blah. And Eli says, I am the champion at Smash Brothers.
Game on.
Yeah, right. So he says, no, seriously, like when I was in college, like I was that guy. I had defeated like literally everybody, and I would have to just go home at night undefeated because like otherwise nobody would ever get to play, and blah, blah, blah. So for weeks, the two of them are talking shit. They like every time they'd see each other at work, it's like, oh, dude, it's on. You're gonna come over to my place. We're gonna play some Smash Brothers. I'm gonna whoop your ass, over and over and over again. So much so that the whole store was buzzing. Like everybody that worked there had heard about this coming bout between Heath and Eli and Smash Brothers and everything. Finally, after weeks of build-up, we get a time when Eli can come over to our place. Now, our house, this house that the company had, it was sort of the party house, where everybody, most of the people who worked at that store would come over to our house to party anyway. So we ended up with this huge crowd of people coming over to watch Heath and Eli finally face off in Smash Brothers. They start playing. 8 seconds, Heath has whipped Eli's ass. 8 more seconds, he's whipped his ass again. 8 more seconds, he's whipped his ass again. Finally, Heath looks over at Eli and he's like, what are you, just toying with me? What's going on? He's like, I barely ever even played this game.
Oh, my God. That is funny. Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to get to the point where we wrap up here. If you have anything else you want to throw in, let me know. Where can people reach you in case they want to have you come do a live show or presentation at a local or national conference?
So the best way to get in touch with me, go to scathingatheist.com. There's a contact tab there. That'll have all my info, whether you want to email me, whether you want to message me on some other medium. You'll find it all there. I'd love to come out and talk. Like literally, I've never been invited to a thing and not then gone to the thing. A lot of the reason that people pay me to do what I do is so that I can be at these local groups and so that I can be at these meetups and stuff. And that's why people, are supplementing my living, allowing me to do this full time, is so that I can be at those things. So by all means, get in touch.
I like it. And once again, Noah Lugeons, thank you so much for being on the Phil Ferguson Show. And I didn't expect that we were going to talk about video games, but that was great fun. Some great memories there. I thank you for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
We do not accept that there is now or has ever been a holy person, and that includes everyone from Mother Teresa to Moses to Jesus Christ. We call him JC. Mohammed, his daughter Fatima, the angel Moroni, the Pope, any Pope, all of the popes, any oracles, self-appointed or appointed by other persons, or elected by strange men in long red dresses. We do not accept that there is any efficacy in prayer. And we don't care whether they're said by your legislator, George Bush, yourself, myself, a priest, a rabbi, a minister, a guru, or even your mama. Atheists see all of this, first, as being totally subjective and going on only in your little heads, nowhere else. And secondly, we see it basically as simply being silly. We don't hate you. We think you're quite odd. But these are all very ancient, outmoded fables, and we no longer need to cling to them in our modern world. The most difficult thing in the world to do is to live in it. Just to get along with other people, to earn a living, to meet our basic needs. And we do not need encumbered by all of these ideas which bring you a sense of guilt, a sense of inadequacy, of impotence. We need a decent, modern, sophisticated, workable set of standards by which we can get along with ourselves and others.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
Well, I'm so glad you've made it this far into the show. I appreciate you being here. I do have one review on iTunes from the West family. I'm assuming that's okay to say because they put it in the publicly available online review. 5 stars. Thank you. Thank you so much. And the text is, so glad I found this podcast. Where else can one find investment advice and religious skepticism? So very short, to the point, another 5-star review. Thank you. Thank you so much. If you like the show, of course, you can go do the same thing if you have iTunes or Apple Podcast Player, whatever it is called today, and go leave a 5-star review for the Phil Ferguson Show. I would greatly appreciate it. You can also go to patreon.com/Phil and become a patron of the show for as little as $1 a show. I appreciate that very much. It's just a little token of appreciation saying that you like the show. And of course, as always, this show, even though we talk about investments, it's not like other shows that tease you with the special magical ways that you can make a ton of money without any risk. It's a straightforward, I guess, investing skeptically. I lay out the information and give you exact specific details of what you should do and often what you shouldn't do, because there are people out there who want to separate you from your money, and we want to build what I call the everlasting nest egg. So it will last longer than you will, and then of course you can give it to your kids, nieces, nephews, a charity of your choice. Whatever you want to do, it puts you in financial control. You're the captain of your own retirement, I guess. Other things we have coming up, like I said before, future shows, we'll talk about the year in review, how we did in 2019. Pretty fucking good, by the way. That's the short summary. And we'll talk about how portfolios do over time. And like I mentioned earlier, investment granularity, unless we come up with a better word for that. Other fun things in my life here in the next few weeks. My daughter's going to take a semester abroad in Brazil. So if you live anywhere near Florianopolis, Brazil, let me know. Maybe you can take her out for lunch. She's going to go study and learn more about Brazil and make her Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, I'm told, even better. And it's kind of fun because sometimes I can tell her things in Italian, and her Portuguese is so good that when I speak to her in Italian, she understands it. Apparently, my Italian's not good enough that when she speaks back to me in Portuguese that I get it. But that's just the way it is. It may be because my brain is older and less plasticky, flexible. But it may also be that I have my own issues. I can be a little bit pedantic, I think the word is. And it's a funny thing. We've had cases, my wife and I were somewhere, maybe in Italy, and the person is telling me something, and because I missed one of the words that they used, I'm not quite sure what they said, but my wife only picked up a couple of words, and she can understand from their gestures and the environment that we're in and the situation that she actually understands the conversation better than I do. Very, very fucking annoying. Not that she's able to do that, that I'm not able to do that. And so it's something I'm going to keep working on the Italian as I go towards fluency. I signed up for an actual online class, which has videos and workbook exercises and drills. And I think my diction, my pronunciation, I have been told by many, many people in the country of Italy that I talk better than them. So I think I'm good there. I'm not perfect, but I think I need to work on grammar, and that's what I signed up for this class. And from time to time, I'll be doing that. If any of you know someone that speaks Italian, or I do know I have Italian listeners to the show, if you want to do some kind of swap where maybe we talk over Skype or some other system, and you help me learn a little Italian, and maybe I help you learn a little English, that would be kind of cool. Otherwise, for lack of that, I'm probably going to hire a tutor or sign up for some online program. If you know of an online system where it's either free or the fee is not too big, where I can get connected to someone who actually knows what they're doing and as a professional can help me learn more grammar and practice my conversational skills, let me know. As always, you may contact me. The email is phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com. I would appreciate that greatly. And, I don't know exactly where I'm going in 2020 for conferences and stuff. I'm assuming I will be at the American Atheist Easter Convention. I think it's in Phoenix, but I haven't really thought about other things. Been kind of busy with this new system to track for my business for Polaris Financial Planning, and we're going to do some of those things, and hopefully it makes me a little bit more efficient. And I guess I'm repeating myself now, so I'm going to wrap up the show. I think this is number 326. Fingers crossed, this is show 326. I appreciate you listening. You can always go to patreon.com and sign up and be a patron. You can go leave a 5-star review at Stitcher or iTunes. Thank you so much for listening to the show, and I do hope to see you out there on the road somewhere soon. Until then, ciao.